Hello everyone, my name is Carl Stover. I'm in EDL 851 and I'm doing my case study today. Let's just jump right into section 1. Here's my summary of the report and kind of the case facts. First of all, administrator, I guess in this case it would be me as the principal. I have been doing my teacher evaluations, and I'm really proud of my staff. They're doing great things. But I'm finding one person who maybe isn't fitting up to snuff, isn't fitting the standard in my school, and that's Mrs. Stevens. She's having difficulty in the classroom. Students aren't engaged. The students are really not motivated at all. They're very disinterested in the classroom. I'm really worried about what they're learning in this classroom, and there's some discipline issues arising from this. Mrs. Stevens herself is pretty intelligent. She knows her stuff. It's just not really showcased in the classroom really well. I've been doing my visits around, and I've been noticing there's an unusual amount of noise coming from this classroom. It's very kind of disruptive. The students don't have a respect for this teacher, and the students just flat out aren't even listening to her. I do my visits with this teacher after I go in, and that post-visitation conference, she's very irritable, she's very hostile to what I'm trying to talk to her about. She doesn't want to listen to what I'm seeing in the classroom. She doesn't want to communicate with me, being very almost insubordinate in these ways. She's being very defensive about even the thought process of her not being the best teacher in the world, or not having the best class in the world. The teacher argues back that the students just don't act well in front of me. They clam up in front of me. They don't do discussions in front of me. That I'm the problem, not her in her classroom, and not what I'm seeing. There's not really a great dialogue here. It's very defensive and in her spot. I'm pretty discouraged, but I want to go ahead and give it another shot. So we do another visit. There's no improvement saw. There's very low class discussion, very low participation. It's just a really limited classroom for students. After that, I kind of go ahead and I make my decision in this case, or at least this principal made the decision to not renew the contract, so no rehire. In this case, this teacher was eligible for tenure in this setting, as stated by the scenario. I know this is going to be a pretty unpleasant conversation when I have to inform her, but in this case, the principal thought, she just doesn't need tenure because that'll be avoiding a catastrophe in the classroom and avoiding our students not getting a good education. The scores I gave her were below average in personality, professional interests, and attitude and teaching ability. Her average scores were relationships with others and discipline. There was no above average and no renewal on her paper sheet. Did another meeting with the teacher after the evaluation. She didn't take it very well. She said I was unfair, or this principal was unfair, inaccurate. She didn't deserve the low rating. Says this presence was not wanted, was upsetting, and she claims that this principal has never tried to help her, never tried to set her on a better path, and that she's got no help. And if he or she, the principal, goes ahead and does this, she's gonna sue. Okay, so that kind of summarizes the case and facts. Let's move on. Okay, so any report of legal or ethical issues. Okay, is there any harm done? I'd say yeah. From what the information I know, there's probably a lot of harm being done to the students' learning potential. If students aren't engaged, they aren't listening, they have no respect for the teacher, most likely they're not learning. Especially if they're not listening. If they're not being involved in a classroom, most likely they're not processing that information through their head. Some other harm done could be, we do have a teacher that if I don't rehire her, she doesn't have a job. Okay, and that would be a problem for her and her family, being able to support her family, so on and so forth. Okay, would we be breaking law in this district if we decided not to rehire her, not to re-sign that contract? Well, in the state of Kansas, there is no tenure law in place. So if we just look at Kansas law itself, I looked up a couple different articles here. First one is from June 15th, 2018. John Hanna wrote this. Says the Kansas court upholds law ending teachers' guaranteed tenure. Actually, there was 2 teachers from a rural district that went through the court system and sued their district for not renewing their contracts in 2014. Well, they actually lost that. Then went ahead and looked at the Kansas Bar Association had a write-up over Kansas repeals teacher tenure. This was in 2014 and issue 2 of LawWise. It was an anti-tenure. It repealed the law that gave teachers who failed dismissal after 3 years in the classroom the right to an independent review of their cases. Also, I found that even in California, that a judge found teacher tenure to be unconstitutional because it wasn't being fair to the equal education laws. Okay, so are we technically breaking law if this was happening in Kansas? No, because there's no teacher tenure policy in Kansas. We do not have tenure anymore. Okay. Now, would there be a breach of contract, discrimination, harassment? I don't think there's been any discrimination or harassment in this situation, at least not from the scenario. If I maybe knew a little bit more information, I could better, look at that. As well as the breach of contract. I haven't actually seen the contract of this teacher currently. I haven't been sitting in on the teacher meetings to know what they've been talking about. So I guess I have a couple questions about this one. Has this happened before in the district? How did they handle it? Is there a policy in the school board policies over this? What is written in the contract to really properly evaluate this question? So one big thing that I think summarizes this is poor evaluations and student engagement strategies linked with the lack of motivation to better teaching skills drives administration to not rehire teacher. Teacher is upset and threatens to sue. I think that's a perfect one-sentence explanation of what's going on. So let's kind of synthesize the facts and what's happening. First of all, in this situation, we've kind of got three people groups in mind. First of all is the students. This is the one I'm the most concerned about because this is, our student body. It's what they're learning. We're trying to put out people who can go into jobs, find careers, and be successful in life. If they're not getting what they need out of this classroom to be successful, that is hurting them, our community, and the United States in the big picture because we're not putting out good people. Okay, we need quality teachers to put out good people to take over careers from people who are retiring. Okay, next up is Mrs. Stevens. She's the teacher in this scenario. Of course, we don't like to fire people in any situation. That's uncomfortable. It's hurting somebody, especially, if that's their livelihood, if that's how they're making money. But in this case, definitely something needs to be done. And then the administrator, which in this case, I guess it would be me, and what I'm going to do as the principal. Okay. Places this is happening in the classroom with the evaluations and the observations, also the administrator's office of those conversation, pre and post conversations happening. Otherwise, it doesn't really say whether this is a rural or suburban community. If it's me being an administrator, it's going to be in a rural community because I don't want to teach in a suburban or high populated one. I want to teach in a rural school. So if we're really going to this as me, it would be in a rural school. Program-wise, this is a high school setting. We are in a public school, and this is regular education. We are not in a SPED classroom. Okay, so let's review and prioritize the information. Potential damage to the community. Okay, well, number one, there could be a lot of damage from the community. It doesn't necessarily say what this teacher is teaching, whether it's science, math, reading, English, but any of those, all of our classes are important. All of our classes, students are supposed to be learning skills, whether it's responsibility, time management, turning stuff in on time, showing up to work on time, all of that relates together. So this could have potential damage to the community, okay? If it's an English class, a reading class, and our students aren't gaining anything, Okay, they're going to go out into the community, they're going to be behind. Maybe they're not going to be able to write as effectively. Maybe they won't be nearly as competitive when they're making advertisements for a business. Maybe they won't be able to write for a community newspaper. There could be all sorts of damages here, it's just some of them we might not be seeing. Potential damage to the school, well, heck, low test scores. And students lacking on the ACT in that division. There's lots of damages that could be done by poor teaching. Who are the stakeholders in this decision? I think the administration, that teacher at hand, and I guess the school board are our main stakeholders in this, because those are the bodies who need to know this information. Outside sources do not. Parents don't need to be knowing this. Students really don't need to be knowing this either. It's none of their business. This is between the administration group, the school board, and that teacher at hand. Have these stakeholders been consulted? Now, this is something that the scenario doesn't really say. I think this principal probably needs to bring in some other stakeholders, whether that's another administrator out of the grade school or middle school, or the superintendent to come observe this teacher. They're struggling. We probably need to get another evaluation on file. Also, maybe a lead teacher needs to come in. If they're on the administration team as a lead teacher, which some of them are considered administrators, maybe need to pull some more people in to this. Can I learn more about the situation? Yeah, I would like to know some of the demographics. I'd like to know some of the kids in that classroom. It might just be a really hard class that teacher, that administrator is going into every single time, and it could be really low-level students. I need some background, I guess. Do I have enough information to solve the problem? Well, I guess if I make enough assumptions about where I would be a principal at and kind of lead that in, probably. But for the scenario at hand, I probably need some more general thoughts and some answers, demographics, also that knowledge of policy and what's in the contract, what's been talked about at their meetings. I would like that information to make a really educated decision. Identifying my options. I think we have quite a few options of what can go on. Number one is no actions taken, so we just let it go and give tenure. To me, this is not a good option overall. But hey, that is an option. Just push it under the rug. Let's go about our day. No rehire. Okay. In this case, we're going to go ahead and give the teacher notice. We're going to give the superintendent and the board notice. And then after that notice is going to be given to everybody on the stakeholder team, we're going to start the hiring process to try to find a new personnel person. Could we get some added help for this teacher? Let's maybe send her to some conferences, to some workshops. Maybe let her go observe other classrooms and see what they're doing and how they manage students, how they engage students. That could be beneficial. Other administrators, lead teachers evaluate and give opinions. So we bring other people in from the administration team, get their opinions, and then maybe let's have a team meeting over this person and with this person. Evaluating these options. Pros and cons. No action taken. Pros, well, we don't ruffle the teacher's feathers. I don't have to go through a whole bunch of extra paperwork as an administrator. I don't have to go through the rehiring process. Bad thing, and this is a big con, in my opinion, we are hurting students' potential to learn. We are hurting their future. Is that giving students an equal right to an education? No. Don't think that one's a good option. Okay. No rehire. Hey, well, this one, it is a valid option. I think the biggest question is looking at the contract and the school policy. Will this teacher have grounds to sue? Other question is, can we even find a teacher replacement to fill our shoes? I know in my school, we've struggled doing this. Okay, we have let teachers go. And we struggle even filling their shoes with another person. So that's a concern to me. If we do get a qualified person in, heck yeah, students are going to be learning. Maybe they'll be more engaged. Maybe we'll increase the ACT scores, increase them as people. Okay. Added help for the teacher. Send her to conferences, workshops. She'll grow as a teacher. She'll learn. But let's pause right there and we'll start with